you know, so we've simplified the way we teach shooting on film. We only shoot 35, because not because it's, you know, the greatest thing in the world, but because it's different. You know, the quality of the grain and what happens to skin tones. It's really important for me for people to have that as part of their education as artists, right? Not just as technicians.
Welcome to Cinema 5D on the Go. Moving conversations about moving images with filmmakers and industry leaders. Brought to you by Kessler Crane, Fujinon, G Technology, and Schneider, in association with Sony. This is your host, Nino Leitner.
On the other hand, you still teach your students shooting on film, is that right?
Yes.
And I think I also still learned that in university for like a year. So
sure.
I really value that experience.
Yes.
Where do you think, does it bring back the discipline that is lacking with digital cameras, or why do you still emphasis on that? Because, I mean, of course it requires a lot of handling around the actual shooting of, you know, how to deal with film stock, how to process it. I mean, not the processing, but how to actually, you know, like, you know, get it into the camera and get it out of the camera.
Right.
That kind of stuff. Where's the value in that in nowadays, where most of these people will probably never shoot on film, even if they have a very successful career after they're finished?
Right. Well, I mean, I think there's multiple reasons. I mean, just as I started out in photography, and that was crucial to my understanding how to go into cinematography, I still feel like the fundamentals of digital imaging are rooted in photochemical imaging. So, for example, it's really relatively easy for us to teach light meter use and exposure in the photochemical world. There's certain parameters, they're quite limited, and they help you understand exposure. When you get into digital imaging, there's so many different ways to decide on an exposure. Yeah. Some of them shortcuts, just looking at a monitor, for example, or some of them really good, but actually bizarrely difficult. Like a waveform monitor will look, oh, it looks great, there's some here and some there, and then let's go. But it tells you nothing really about the important elements of the frame, how they're exposed. So it's a discipline, as you refer to it, and so it helps us teach the discipline of exposure. It helps us teach the discipline of on-set work, and I also, you know, so we've simplified the way we teach shooting on film. We only shoot 35. When the fellows are working in the classroom, they only shoot 4-perf, and they look at one light dailies with printer lights. So they have in their DNA what I feel is so important for them to have, which is to see what film really looks like, because not because it's, you know, the greatest thing in the world, but because it's different. Yeah. Transition from colors from one thing to another are just, you know, quite lovely in film, or can be if it's well shot. And, you know, the quality of the grain and what happens to skin tones, all of those are things that I want our cinematography students to have as part of their kind of visual DNA, right? So that they have that. In addition, we do something related to shooting on film, and that is we have a history of cinematography class, and we see lots of films that were shot before electronic imaging, and so those films are only viewed with a film print. Yeah. So we get an archive quality print from either the Academy or somewhere, and then we look at a projected image. Like the first film they see is Sunrise. Okay. So they're seeing a completely renovated, high quality film print that looks just as it did in 1920. So it's really important for me for people to have that as part of their education as artists, right? Not just as technicians. So, yeah, there's a lot of reasons to shoot film. Obviously, the emphasis on the program is in digital imaging, and when you talk about what's the future for cinematographers, I think the future for those who succeed is going to be that they're extremely knowledgeable.
Yeah.
They're very careful about, what's going on under the hood of the camera, that they know workflow, they know a pipeline through a post facility, and they can't be tricked. When something doesn't look right, they can't be told, oh, that's just the way it is. They're able to analyze the elements of the image and know, okay, you compressed it here, and now it's not looking right, so let's fix this, right? And so that's something cinematographers, if they're going to survive, have to be able to do.
Yeah. It's also so confusing. I mean, you used to have to know, the camera itself was just a mechanical thing, and you needed to know the film stocks, but now you kind of have to be an expert for each camera almost, because some of them are so complicated that you can spend weeks just digging through menus, finding all the functions.
Yes.
And ironically, the most successful one is the one that has the 3 buttons, right? The Alexa.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
So, can you just give our viewers a quick overview of what the process is and what the, if they want to apply it to the AFI?
Sure.
And also what the curriculum looks like, the master program, for example.
Okay. Well, if you come to AFI, you apply to the cinematography discipline. You don't apply to the school itself.
Okay.
Right? So if you apply to cinematography, we expect to see some work. And we're pretty willing to see a kind of eclectic kind of work, like a stills portfolio, as well as maybe a documentary or a short narrative film. And then there is an assignment to fulfill a short film that you can make with your cell phone as part of the application process. And then, but what we're really interested in is a mature candidate that has something to say for themselves and has enough self-knowledge that they're getting into a very difficult program, and they know this is something that they really want. And so we ask our narrative statement to be written so that we get a sense of the candidate in their own voice. And then, sometimes that's difficult for people who, English might not be the first language, or, they may not feel that they're good writers. And so in the cases where we are interested in a candidate, we do an interview. We prefer it be in person, but it can be, by Skype or whatever. And, so the application process is online, and it's easy to read about. It's AFI.com, and then you select the conservatory, and also the curriculum is listed there. As I said yesterday in our seminar, people spend they spend just as much time out in the field shooting as they do in the classroom. So it's a very production-oriented program. At a minimum, every student makes 4 narrative films in 2 years. One's their graduate thesis film, which they can, enter into festivals or, take with them as a calling card. And in addition, they make 2 short visual essays that they can also use for their reel or show as they like. And then in the first year, you make 3 short narrative films. Those are digital imaging, and they stay within the confines of the conservatory. They're finished films, you know, they're shot and edited and titled and, you know, scored and all of that. But we use them for the critique process that I referred to earlier. And so if you go to AFI, you're making 6 films in 2 years,
Cool.
which is a lot.
It's quite a lot, yeah.
It is.
So
and you know, one of the things that we like a lot about the program is if I'm shooting, so the first year films they're all done in a 7-week period. So each team has 4 days to shoot, and a team is composed of the 6 disciplines, you know, writing, directing, cinematography, and so on. And you know, so the week before you shoot, you have off. You're not crewing for anyone. You're not going to class particularly. Then you shoot. Then the week after, you have time to write up your notes in regard to the shoot that you've done. And then the remaining 4 weeks, you're crewing for somebody else. And that actually is a really important part of our program, because when I crew for you and I watch you shooting, I learn a lot about how you're dealing with the people around you, how you're, you know, dealing with the narrative, you know, complexity of the, you know, what you're shooting, and I see you trying to solve those issues. And so whether they're personal or narrative or technical, and I learn from that, even though I'm just pushing a dolly for you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm next to you, and that, you know, when I think back on my own career, what I wish I had done more of was operating for other cinematographers. I did it for a short period of time, but I learned a tremendous amount. Mostly how to handle large crews, because I didn't do much of that, and I was working for cinematographers.
Well,
I lived in San Francisco, and they came up from LA. Yeah.
Even as a PA, when, you know, people are starting out, you can. I mean, it's that when I started out, that was actually a great position, just to after university, just to get an overview of how a professional set is run.
Yeah,
it's like
exactly.
It's a horrible work, and I wouldn't want to do it again.
Yes, of course.
But it's like, you know, like it's probably the one field where you really, depending of course what kind of PA you are, but you would you know, see everybody work, just the teamwork really. Get a good overview of how a good professional set is run.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But then it's time to get out of this as quickly as possible. Otherwise, you're stuck in the production track.
Yes, of course, of course. Yeah. And then also what we're doing at AFI is we're kind of bonding those 140 people in each year, and when they leave AFI, they work together. They work for each other. They work, you know, with the producers and directors, and a big part of their entry into their career is that there's this whole group of people that's doing that with them. Yeah. So
how many? You're taking 140 people in total per year?
Well, yes, but that's over 6 disciplines. So in cinematography, there's 28.
Okay.
Yeah, an equal number of directors, so that we can break everybody up into teams. And the other thing you asked about was curriculum, and you know, I'll just refer to what I said before, which is that a cinematographer needs a really substantive grounding in the technical matters of imaging, and so we're super rigorous, particularly in the first year, about all aspects of learning digital imaging in particular, and also photochemical. So most people don't wash out of our program. We almost never have anyone. We mentor when people are struggling a little bit. We mentor them. I think we choose people really well. I don't, you know.
How many applicants do you have on average?
It runs about 5 to 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's quite,
Yeah.
Not so easy to get in then.
No.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. And we often have candidates who apply 1 year and don't get in, and understand through the process what's missing. It might be they need a little better work to show, or they might need to, kind of be out in the world a little longer before they, have more set experience.
Yeah.
We really gauge each candidate partly by the amount of professional set experience they've had. Even as a PA, it's useful.